Hello again, everyone. This is Ken Kibler, Director of Client Profitability for eTruckBiz. We're about 2 minutes shy of the top of the hour, so if everybody just sit tight, we should get going once the attendee list levels off a little bit. But look forward to talking with everybody today. So sit tight, and we will get going shortly. Thank you. All right, we've reached the top of the hour. The attendee list has seemed to level off. Once again, this is Ken Kibler, Director of Client Profitability with eTruckBiz. Thank everybody for showing up today on our regular Tuesday session where we cover volume, results, as well as some of the changes that seem to be happening between the FedEx and the UPS world out there, which should keep us busy for a little bit while there. So what we'll do, as always, if you have questions, please put them in the QA and the chat. And without further ado, I will turn this over to Jeff Balzac.
Okay, let's see if we can get it going here. As always, we need to tell you that eTruckBiz is not endorsed, sponsored, approved, or otherwise affiliated with FedEx Ground. All right. So as we do every week, we'll take a look at volume trends. A lot going on over here, but pickup volume looks, again, flat. Stops are flat, the pickup side on the vans. And pickup packages, though, may be showing a little bit of life. That's good. That's good. Let's see if we can keep that trend going. That'd be good. But on the delivery side, not so good. Stops are down almost 5%. That's not necessarily a good thing. And packages down too. So we don't want to dwell on that for at the moment. But still, there's some good news. Some good stuff here. So routes dispatched seem to be following the trend, declining. That's good. That's good if we want to maintain our margins, right? Which results in favorable productivity. So even though we were down a little bit, stops still we're down, but looks like we got a handle on it. That's a good thing there. It's a really good thing. So here we go. Network 2.0 is about to really get going this week. So far you really hadn't seen too much. Maybe some of you have. I don't know. You can speak up, put something in the chat or put something in the Q&A if that's the case, but it's about to really get going here. And most of you know, we've been around a while. Most of you know we have a good track record for predicting what's going to happen next. Actually, if you want to know, we've been predicting this whole thing for years, but we're going to try to take a shot at making some predictions for what's about to happen here very, very soon. So we're going to go through what we're going to say are 10 predictions. Now, these are predictions. Don't go running to anybody saying, yeah, they said this was going to happen. We're going to take a shot at predicting some things here. All right, for what is going to be FedEx contracting in the new era. The whole ground tag is gonna fall off, as well as express and everything. So FedEx Contracting in the new era. So one of the first things that's going to happen is contractors' financial situations are going to change. Yep, for the better. If for no other reason, drivers have to perform revenue generating services in the afternoon when productivity normally decreases or ceases. This will increase margins. So as we've said for months and months now, and as the folks that already have time definites have seen, it's not a situation where you hurry up and get done and bring the truck back in. Those days are numbered if you still are doing that. The folks that are doing this already now know that the trucks are busy in the afternoon. Is that right, Ken?
Absolutely correct. It's extended the on-road hours in the facility that I track pretty closely.
So that's not necessarily a bad thing, because guess what's happening with those resources in the afternoon now?
They're doing more stops. They're just not staying out there. They're doing more stops, therefore generating more revenue per dispatch.
Right. That's a good thing. So this is a pretty easy prediction. We're gonna call this one and say your margins are going to increase. They will increase when this starts to happen.
You don't get the Nostradamus award for that prediction.
Ah, man, thought that was a hot one. We got a hot one at the end though. All right, so another thing that we predict is going to happen: driver turnover, while it won't go away, is going to decrease. And you say, well, why is that? Well, here after a while, it'll take some time, and it depends on how soon you've been integrated into the new environment or not, but the work environment's going to stabilize. So what's one of the things that drivers hate the most? They hate coming in and seeing mounds of packages by their truck or whatever. They don't like change. They just want the same thing to happen every day. Well, a lot of things are going to stabilize. A lot of things are going to, they're going to get used to being out 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. All those kinds of things are going to start stabilizing here after a while. So fully utilizing a driver's day will lead to greater revenue generation for the CSP. And when that happens, you're going to be able to compensate them more. In fact, contractors, CSPs are going to place greater value on retaining the good drivers, right? And then I know the first thing everyone would think about right now is, well, I can't pay them anymore now. Well, might be true now, but in the new environment, if they're generating more revenue, guess what you can do? You can pay them more, and you're going to be able to hang on to them, which is going to decrease turnover, right? And we got in here, the challenges and excitement of time definite deliveries will appeal to those that enjoy this sort of work. So, everybody likes to dwell on well, this driver doesn't like this guy doesn't do this, I can't get this guy to clock in, I can't get this. Okay, that's great, but you have some good drivers that they like what they do, and they're going to think it's cool to start delivering or handling packages that have a lot of importance to them. It's kind of a cool thing for the folks that really like what they do.
We had a great comment with that, Jeff. It came in on the chat. It said, yes, you have to pay a little bit more, but the comment was then that paying hourly will combat that, and then the drivers, if they work more, get paid more, and like I said, they like their work environment, they will hang around. So, and not only will they be working more, but they'll producing more revenue. So that gives you the ability to pay them.
Right. So CSPs actually are going to have a better job to offer the folks, right? You pay them a little bit more, a little more stability, a little more predictability. And we'll see that here in a minute. But And as you don't turn them over, of course, everything becomes more stable too. So everything that goes bad at the same time on the way back, it's a good thing. So turnover is going to decrease as we go forward. Okay, number 3. There's going to be new types of CSAs. What does that mean? Well, first of all, almost, I'm going to say everybody, but the vast majority of you out there right now are going to have redefined CSAs. Might be a small redefinition of some sort. It might be a total overhaul. Who knows? But there's going to be lots of redefining of CSAs. And if we had to predict, we would predict this is let's see what happens at the end of this week. Little hint. We'll see. Never know though, right? Redefined CSAs. There's gonna be some other kind of CSAs. We'll call them special purpose CSAs. So it's possible to have a CSA that only handles 830s and 1030s or 830s only, or who knows what kind of stuff is going to happen. We'll call them early morning CSAs for now. I'm sure they'll have another term for that, but that's coming. You may have what's termed in the express world DGs, dangerous goods. You could have a CSA. Maybe that's all they do is handle DG. They actually, Express has specialized drivers and equipment and stuff to handle certain types of things. We'll just put it that way. Like here in Huntsville, they have a driver or two that all they do is they pick up DNA samples off of airplanes and take skids of them over to a place here called Hudson Alpha. And that's all they do. They move this stuff they move those things from the airport to their offices over there. So special handling types of situations, those are coming. Something that for now we'll term as in-house contingency. So currently, you can have contingency and you can take your contingency team and go to different terminals, which is fantastic. Apparently works. And some folks are doing very well doing that. But in the future, you may have a CSA, if you want to define a CSA like that, you may have a CSA or a contract possibly that's all you do in your building. Maybe in a specified 2 or 3 buildings, that's all you do is contingency. That's actually being tested out there right now. Okay, there goes number 3. 3 is gone. 4. Fourth big prediction here, Ken. 4th one. The metals program and time definite service will be much more strictly enforced. So the metals program was introduced. It's kind of there. Some of you that have been in bronze, no, you don't want to be in bronze, but not everybody that's in bronze has had their contract terminated. That's for sure, right? Those folks that currently have time definites in their operation, yeah, FedEx wants you to get them done. Have they terminated contracts over it? In situations of gross neglect or gross where they just can't do it, that's happened, but not necessarily in mass yet, right? So bronze performers are going to be on a short leash. And the reason is FedEx has to protect the brand. This is of all things that they're going to do, they'll spend money on, time, whatever they have to do. They're going to protect the brand, right? That's the most valuable thing that they have. So that's why those things above are going to become more important. So time definite service is going to become bigger than ILS. All of you know, if you leave a bunch of packages on the floor, what's going to happen? FedEx going to come to you and say, what are you going to do about these packages sitting on the floor? You need to get them out of here. Let's go. I mean, that kind of stuff is going on right now. Always has gone on, even back in our day there, Ken. But now, time definite service for sure is going to take on they're going to get really crazy about time definite service as we go forward here. Prediction number 5. The evolution of courier-only and hybrid operations to all CSP operations over time. So what does that mean? So what's going to happen is you're going to see some areas just be serviced by couriers only, which means express folks right now that are servicing them. Some areas it's going to be express people going to service those areas. But over time, even the ones that start out being courier only are going to wind up being contracted. So metro areas that start out as courier based will eventually transition back to contractor based because there's just too much cost savings there that FedEx can realize. The reason they're going to be courier based at first is they're very, very, very complex areas. Imagine a very busy downtown metro area downtown someplace. Those areas are very difficult to service. They may have hundreds and hundreds, maybe, I don't know, thousands of time definites at one time in a particular area. That's not necessarily something that they want to put on the contractors to start out with. So they might just have those types of operations be handled by couriers, or maybe just the 830s for now. So maybe they have, in a lot of places that have time definite service already, you see some couriers still in there doing the 830s. Eventually, all of that, eventually, now not, we don't mean eventually in a couple of weeks, we mean probably a few years, but those areas are going to all wind up, in the end, it's all going to be contracted. Something that might go with this could be, and this has been floating around there for a long time, maybe you wind up with your own operating authority. It looks right now that they don't want to do that in the middle of all this transition. So that could have been either put on the back burner, or it's probably slated for later. Let's put it that way. And then the next thing is, will freight be far behind all of this? Why not contract all the freight operations? I don't know. Maybe it's a one thing at a time thing here, but we are predicting that everything someday will be contracted. Okay, number 6. Your negotiations, we predict, are going to change. Well, what does that mean? We think at some point CSPs are going to make a first offer to FedEx, and you're going to see more of a traditional negotiation take place. So you can still do that now, but instead of them giving you some offers and then you picking one, or if you do a traditional negotiation, Carrie would tell you usually FedEx will go first, of course. That's probably going to change. Why do we think that? Because that's how it works in the rest of the industry. Folks don't go to wherever and say, hey, how much would, tell me how much I can bid on this particular account or this work or whatever. That's not how it goes. So this whole part of this whole change is so that your operations look more like the rest of the industry, and this type of negotiation probably would be in line with that. All right. Another thing that's we're pretty sure about this one. The role of the BC is going to be changed and redefined. Oh, all right. What does that mean? So BCs today do all kinds of different things, but the role will become more of a lead driver type person, dispatcher, and trainer above basically what happens now. And we'll show you why here in a second, but you're going to need, first of all, and this is going to be the subject of whole nother webinar or whatever we do, but BCs don't necessarily fit into the financial model. right? So just real quick, if you dispatch less than 14 dispatches, there's not really a BC budgeted in there into your settlement. The role of a dispatcher for sure, when you start getting all these different time definites and when all the same day on-call pickups start entering your operation, a dispatcher's somebody's gonna have to say, hey man, you gotta take this, you gotta take this, go get that one. Can't really, that's something different than really happens. Now, does it happen sometimes? Yeah, in certain situations, a breakdown or something like that, that happens, but it's gonna be an everyday, all the time thing where you're going to wind up needing somebody that's going to dispatch or point out what to do to folks. And of course, a trainer. BC is supposed to be a trainer now, but that definitely will be a big deal in the future. Now, CSPs are going to be strongly encouraged to utilize third parties to perform most administrative and engineering functions. So if your BC is trying to be a lead driver, shuttling packages around, doing some deliveries themselves, dispatcher, trainer, there's no time for them to do some of the things that they do now. So most folks would say, well, I just have to hire somebody else. Well, that costs too much. That's not necessarily in the model as it is, as it is today. So you're going to have to start thinking about and using third parties to perform a lot of these different things for you, which is not necessarily a bad thing at all. It's actually, it's good. We'll talk about that actually more a little bit later. But if you look, this is exactly what FedEx is doing now, right? They're not doing everything anymore. Every time you turn around, they're farming something out to a third party, right? And we happen to be one. In Truck Biz, we happen to have real-time API access into FedEx's database. It's what they're doing, right? So, and why are they doing it? For the cost advantages. So, you might want to take the cue from FedEx. Ultimately leads to cost improvements. That's the whole thing here. You don't want to necessarily hire people to do all these different things they're going to have to get done. You can just use a third party who can do it a lot cheaper and more efficient and better than you for many things on your own than you can do on your own. All right. After a shock period, CSP's business values are going to soar. Now, what do we mean by the shock period? The shock period is kind of sort of taking place right now. People are still wanting to get into the business, but they're seeing that there's a lot of things going on. And do I want to get into this? Do I not want to get into it? I don't know. But that shock period is going to go away. So one of the things is stability will increase business values. It's what people are looking to get into the FedEx space right now because the economy is not real good and they're looking for that stability, right? So that is one of the things for sure that FedEx can offer everybody out there. They're a Fortune 50 company and you can definitely depend on that settlement coming every Friday. I won't use the term that people always use around us, but anyways, they're looking for that stability, and that stability is going to increase your business value. Significant increases in revenue alone will move value. So as that volume comes over from Express, if you're in one of those CSAs, or if you're in an area where you get a lot of that volume comes over from Express, what do they do? It increases your revenue. And increasing your revenue is a really good thing because that revenue is going to drive your business value higher, right? Okay, and then what we talked about before, your margin's going to start increasing. So you're going to get greater productivity, efficiency out of the resources you currently have. So as your margins increase, as you do better from a per stop or per dispatch point of view, that's going to drive your values higher too. So this is actually a pretty no-brainer one here. Ken, what do you think?
I absolutely have to agree. I mean, anytime your margins improve, your efficiency improve, the value of your company is going to increase. And that's all possible when done smartly and the revenue increases. So absolutely no brainer.
No
Once
brainer.
again,
See, there we
once
go. Going
again,
way
no
up.
no Nostradamus award for this one either.
All right. Number 9. Some form of remote ownership will make a comeback. So as you all know, FedEx frowns on absentee owners and remote ownership, and they want the owner there and whatnot. But after a while, some things are going to change again. As change subsides and operational stability eventually returns, AOs are going to wind up adopting administrative engineering third parties, which is what we just talked about a minute ago. And when you do that, and as things settle down, the AOs, you folks on this call, you can withdraw from a lot of the day-to-day operational grind that you do right now. Right? Now, does that mean you don't have to go internal anymore? I don't know. If things are going pretty good, I don't know why you have to be there. Again, as driver turnover decreases, that's going to provide for a more stable operation. And that's really as you know, we've always said, the reason that things get out of control is because you're turning over drivers. If we're not turning over drivers, things stay pretty stable. And there again, you may not have to go into the terminal as much anymore.
Not to
Okay.
say that some driver turnover isn't good. So
Well, we didn't say it's gonna cease. It's gonna get better, way better.
yes,
Yeah, and sometimes folks need to be offered to the industry, that's for sure.
retention is good.
So here we go. And now for the hottest prediction there, Ken. Number 10.
Here, Fahrenheit 451 here.
FedEx margins catch up to and surpass UPS's. Well, why is that hot? Hot thing. So if you go back and you try to figure out why in the world would FedEx want to figure out and even call something Drive and Network 2.0. Why did they want to change the operating agreement? Those of you that have been around a long time know that the ISP agreement replaced the old legacy agreement. What did we used to call that? I don't even remember what we used to call it then.
And the contractor legacy agreement, the IC.
But that
the
ISP
IC,
agreement
yeah,
was done for a reason. They didn't just one day say, well, let's change the contract. That's probably a good idea. Nope, it was done for a reason. It was done for what's about to happen. Anyway, FedEx will ultimately achieve low-cost provider of service status. That's the whole point of having a contracted power out there, right? FedEx will use this competitive advantage to bid for more profitable business. Now, whoa, what? There's certain business that FedEx wants, and there's certain business that they don't want. So, I mean, Amazon is a pretty good example. Amazon didn't want to pay squat to get those packages delivered, and you could say, well, those trucks and everything were in the neighborhoods anyway, which yeah, that's probably true, but it was so bad that they couldn't, when they costed it, they couldn't make money at it. So that's the kind of thing that they wanted to get rid of. But if you become the low-cost provider of the service in any industry for that matter, what happens? Now you have pricing power. They can go to some of these places that don't want to use them now or whatever, and they can say, hey, we can do it cheaper than our friends at UPS can. So it's a very big deal, right? Here's the thing. FedEx will use this competitive advantage to dominate the transportation industry. A lot of people, whoa, wait a minute. No, that's not going to happen. How can you, that can't be. That's not going to happen. I'm telling you, that's what this was all about. So, you don't think so? So those of you that take a look at transport topics once in a while, let's show you something here. This is the most recent ranking of transportation companies, I guess in the United States. Look who's on top, UPS, $100 billion in revenue on a yearly basis right now. 100 billion. But guess what? FedEx is right on there, right behind him at 92 billion. Right? That's only $7.5 billion away now. I don't know where $7.5 billion comes from. It's a lot. That's a ton of money. But it's not that far because look at number 3 there. It's JB Hunt at 14 billion. Whoa. If you're at 14 billion, you're going to try to catch number 1. That ain't never going to happen. But it's not beyond the realm of possibility that FedEx can and actually overtake UPS. It's interesting if you look at this particular graphic here as well. Look at that net income. UPS claims to have made 11.5 billion. Well, good if that's the case, but FedEx only at 2.9 or 3 billion. Now there's a big, huge discrepancy. And how can that be? What's going on there? Well, look at the next column. UPS generates 100 billion on 536,000 employees, where FedEx says that they generate 92 billion on 547,000 employees. That's more employees to generate less revenue, right? That's what there's a huge opportunity here, of course, right? Very big opportunity. And that's what the Network 2.0 and the Drive Initiative, everything's all about, right? So we just want to we're on the eve of the whole thing right now. You guys don't know it yet, but it's about to really get underway. The destination for the company is to be the largest transportation provider in the industry. So we just want to tell you that we're going for the ride. The question is, do you want to go too? Right? So let's see if there's any questions or discussion about these predictions. What do you think?
It says, do you think FedEx will tie the extra revenue from Express to our service scores and to make it so that we never can reach to threshold service score and won't get the extra revenue? Now, the extra revenue for the Express stops is tied to service at that particular time level for the 10:30s and the noons. Currently, that's what you would be compensated additional funds for. As Jeff talked about in other contracting types, 830 or dangerous good types of contracts. The 830s would have, time definite specifications as well. So they will tie additional revenues in a bonus right now towards achieving the service standard goals. In the future, will it just be part of your contract? It could be. They could do that to simplify the contract, where you might get paid for an express package, a non-e-commerce package, and an e-commerce. But you will have to achieve the service levels that they expect to first get the bonus, but in the future to maintain your contract as well. As Jeff said, that's going to be weighted heavily with your metals rankings, and it'll come to a point if a contractor is not delivering the 98.5 service, then that CSP services will be offered to the industry. So do you have any sense that CSAs will change overall income, or will the CSAs be designed to keep CSPs flat or an increase? You want that one, Jeff?
Well, I mean, they're going to change CSAs. I don't know that they're going to change them based on what a contractor wants, if you want to put it that way. They're going to change them so that it makes operational sense. I don't know if that's what this means. Do you have any sense?
What yeah, I think, normally when CSAs and they've done kind of move stuff around within a facility or moved a facility, they've like to create overlap in that. They always tried to maintain similar revenue numbers for the contractor. Uh, One thing they've always had, but they'll never admit, is targeted settlement. They want people to net the same thing. So, they will make it equitable if they have to change your CSA. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
I just, they're not, I mean, they're not doing what they're doing just to mess with folks. They're doing what they're doing to see if they can't put the networks together. That's really what's going on here. And if it means somehow what you want getting redesigned or whatever it happens, they're just gonna do it because they gotta do it. If that means they cut your revenue in half, that's the case. It could mean the opposite. It could be, hey, Andy, we're gonna give you this or that or whatever it is. Oh, it could double your revenue. I mean, it's gonna change based on what the operational needs are, not necessarily trying to, I mean, yeah, they don't want to necessarily go in there and and mess with people's settlement either, but they're gonna have to do what they're gonna have to do here.
Yeah. Most recent example would have been they moved some zip codes out of the Lawrenceburg, Tennessee station over to Humboldt, Tennessee. So it aligned with the express network per se. And then Humboldt basically took that zip code and they're handling the express volume out there. I kind of think that's the best example. So it affected the CSA of a contractor in Lawrenceburg and it affected the CSA of a contractor in Humboldt, Tennessee. So that's probably the best example. Again, the next one, I mean, says, well, your service score is too low. Well, if your service on express packages is below 98.5, you will not get the bonus, and that's paid on a weekly basis. So you have got to achieve 98.5 on-time service for the 10:30s and the noons to get paid any extra additional revenue. Anything to add to that, Jeff?
That's how it is now.
Yeah.
But if they, I mean, they didn't spend, there's a clue. They didn't spend a lot of time like changing the settlement or going crazy, define this in the contract or anything. So that probably was pretty temporary. We actually have seen a couple of full integration models, if you want to put it that way, and that bonus for delivering the time definite isn't there anymore, but it is built into everything. So instead of getting that service bonus, if it exists in the future, who knows? But instead of getting that, the other ones we've seen, they're built into, they're paying the folks a little bit more for every stop. Let's put it that way. And that should be the same thing as either getting that bonus or not getting the bonus.
Correct. It says number 5, and if you can review number 5, Jeff, makes sense. We're in a metro area and it's rumored it will take a few years prior to full implementation. So I definitely agree with that. Said sometimes it's easier to do the employee model, but as Jeff says, if they take the employee model, they will quickly try to get that reverted back to contractors just because that cost advantage is there. Remember that long-term goal is to be the number one transportation provider in the world, and that's what they want to be. And said 7.5 billion sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but you're really, really close. And if you can dominate uh, pricing in the accounts that you want, you can make headway very, very quickly. So as they cut our revenue enough to satisfy shareholders, how much more can they take from us? I don't think there's any taking involved with this. The goal is to have your revenue grow uh, and to have CSPs do it profitably. Normally, a more efficient operation is a profitable operation. Have CSPs gone by the wayside that are efficient? Probably some. Make no mistake, FedEx makes mistakes on contracts. We see it. They do make mistakes on contracts. However, if they feel that a contractor is inefficient and is going to damage the brand, you might not get a very good contract offer. Just like I said, there's some driver turnover that's good. I hate to say it, but FedEx believes there's some CSP turnover that is good. I don't mean to sound crude when I say that, or cruel, but uh, it's true. There will be some turnover, and like I said, hopefully, if you are running a efficient operation, you're doing it well. FedEx does not want to get rid of you. If you're damaging the brand, and your drivers are damaging the brand, and you're not doing anything to address that, then that contract might not be offered. Anything to add to that, Jeff?
Well, I don't think they set out in a lot of cases to go out and just cut people's revenue. You gotta look at when was your last negotiation and what type of, if it was an increase, was that predicted, I guess, was that something that they said, well, this CSA is going to go up 4%, so we're going to offer this or that. But here's the thing, you need to compare what happened at that point when you negotiate your last contract to what's actually happening. Because if you're not getting the volume that was predicted, that hurts bad, because those rates were figured out on that higher level of volume, if that makes sense, right?
Yes.
So if your volume's not there, that's the double whammy. That's the dark side of density. If you don't get the density, then it hurts even more because they're paying you less per stop and package, right? And if that's the case, that is I ask Miss Carrie if she's on here, but that's probably a case where you need to show the proof and go to FedEx and say, hey, I got to renegotiate this contract.
Yes, if your density decreases, your revenue per stop should increase. And that's part of why they structure the contracts the way they do, with a certain amount of them fixed versus variable settlement. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I'm taking a cut, and they don't look at the total stops that are involved. And each year in that contract, FedEx has a assumption based off of growth or non-growth or negative growth. And right now we're seeing the contracts have negative growth planned with e-commerce stops, but they're showing significant growth, about 4.5% in the non-e-commerce, which is, we're seeing it everywhere. But if your overall stops from contract to contract drop, and that means my CSA is covering the same area, but my total stops have dropped, you have lost density. If you've lost density, your revenue per stop should increase. If FedEx is cutting your revenue per stop, then you absolutely need a renegotiation, and you have to involve us, preferably, as well as your BDS and engineer. Anything to add to that, Carrie?
Nope, I think you did a fine job.
Thank you very much. So next one was X just announced that they are surcharging basically every urban zip code in some of the largest markets. Are they going to share this increase with the ISPs that service these zip codes? And Carrie could back me up on this. We're seeing mostly increases in the revenue per stop now, even if there's growth in that CSA, we're still seeing some increases. They've got other things they've got to fund, but it's critical that you know what your costs are. They're going to know what your revenue per dispatch is. I mean, they even tell you that now. But that's great to know that, but you got to know what your costs per dispatch are. It's also part of you know, if they collect more and pay you, if they collect $10 more and pay you $5 more, they're still improving their margins, and that adds up to the savings of $4 billion as well too. So I think you'll see some of that passed on. But once again, I think you have to provide service to get that passed on to you as well. Anything to add to that, Jeff?
So other than the fact that those increases they're going to charge people in the urban areas they're pretty steep. I don't know. They need to pass some of that on, that's for sure.
Some of us are efficient. Costs are still high, no doubt about that. Fuel, trucks, repairs, settlements are lower. We can't afford to have good drivers that FedEx wants, but we get paid Walmart wages and settlements. I'd love to look at a business review for you, Derek. I would encourage that because I'd like to see what your revenue per dispatch is. What is your, you know, how, and there are drivers that are efficient. There's contractors that are efficient that have something wrong with their contract, you know. So I would definitely like the opportunity to look at it. I'd like to look, you know, come up with what, you know, what is your cost per dispatch, and what is the revenue per dispatch? Because if you do not have enough revenue per dispatch, you can't cut enough. You just can't cut. Uh, so 2 to 3 years ago, FedEx passed on a customer fuel surcharge that never passed it on to every ISP who delivered the packages. Your fuel surcharge is on every stop, and it is figured through an OPIS. It does vary on a weekly basis based off of the fuel. Have they completely have they restructured that a little bit? Yeah, we're seeing kind of more of an emphasis on fuel. Sometimes now they'll show your base price down and they want to pay you more than you're actually getting now. So sometimes it doesn't make sense to take an increase in the fuel. And that's something, once again, that Carrie's very good at studying. And if you go to a traditional negotiation, she may recommend moving dollars around. But yeah, I think FedEx did get some grief for this appearance that they weren't passing that on, because now fuel is lower and they're paying more on a per stop basis. I think that might be the best way to explain it. I don't know, Jeff or Carrie, if you can add to that at all or not.
Yeah, I guess the way to look at it is it may not always be in your best interest to increase the fuel surcharge when it is volatile and it is adjusted on a monthly basis, when you can take that same amount of money and put it into a stop charge or a package charge, and you're guaranteed to get that same amount every stop.
Next question is kind of hard to give you a specific answer. It says, generally speaking, what's a good revenue per dispatch? Well, your biggest cost is your labor, and you have to maintain your labor at 45% to successfully hit your targeted profit margins, or the owner benefit margin of 12%. So you've got to know, you know, what are my daily wages? And you say, well, I pay hourly. Okay, that's great. We love that you pay hourly. But say I pay $20 an hour and my drivers are on average $9, 9 hours. If I pay overtime, that's $200 a day. If I pay straight time, I got $180 there. Okay. Now, if I get $400 in revenue, if I go 180 of 400, my labor's at 45%. But guess what? I didn't include my payroll taxes. So the best way to, you've got to know what your labor is, and then you got to know how much do I have to generate to keep my labor rate at 45%. Like I said, you want to include your payroll taxes with that. And on average, Carrie, what are payroll taxes? 5-6%?
Yes, that's a fair assumption. Average.
Okay, so So if I'm gonna pay, if I'm only generating $400, quite frankly, my labor, my gross wages would be 39%. So if I got 400 times 0.39, I could only pay $156 a day. So in my opinion, 400 would be the minimum. There's a lot of people that target $550 revenue per dispatch. But you got to know what your labor is, and it's also going to vary based on your miles. Normally, a rural area is going to generate revenue per stop that's higher. Your fuel is going to be higher. Your maintenance are going to be higher, and your labor then becomes a lower part. If you're in a rural area, quite frankly, your labor as a percentage of revenue might drop down to 35% because you're gonna eat the higher cost on your fuel. But 400, if you're paying 180, 400, you're cutting it very, very close on your revenue per dispatch. Okay. Jeff, Carrie, anything to add to that?
No.
We are being told in our terminal that real inbound service is what matters now, and how local inbound. Will this be measured in our contracts or KPI metals? I'm told I must be at 99 local inbound service or 99 real in-time service. The real in-time service are taken into account exceptions, and yes, they would always like exceptions to be below 2%. I like that they're looking at real inbound service because that was kind of a thing that I looked at hard when I was a senior manager. It was about managing exceptions because I wanted to make sure that we were delivering with integrity. But local inbound service is 99. Yes, that's going to be there forever. 2% exceptions is very, very reasonable. Quite frankly, we always shot for 1%, but 97 is real inbound local service is very, very reasonable to do. I think they'll continue to look at that because they want to manage the exceptions. They don't want drivers abusing the code sevens. And that's a big deal because then you got scanning integrity. If you have drivers that are out there lying and not scanning stuff properly, then it's hard to sell your service to the customer. Okay. How can payroll taxes be under 7.65%? That is your cost per employee just for FICA. Then unemployment taxes is 10% at a minimum, and a payroll tax. You want that one, Carrie? Since I don't do payroll enough, but that's your total revenue. I mean, of your total revenue, I think you're thinking of their wages, correct? Am I missing that, Carrie?
Right. Yeah, we're talking total revenue. He is not.
Okay, yeah, because you're talking the 7.65% of their wages and payroll, the wages. So yeah, we talk total revenue as 45%. Okay, so semantics. So somebody, Dirk says I'm at 622 per dispatch. That's excellent. Like I said, I'd like to look at what your costs are. I don't know what your mile situation is or what your rate of pay is. But I mean, 622 times 0.39. I mean, you could pay your drivers up to $242 a day and keep your labor at 45%. So, and some of that debt service plays into it because technically debt service does not play into that 12%. If you've got a small owner benefit, if you've got an SBA loan. Jeff, anything to add to that?
Actually, I think Derek, he said it up next thing. He said, I'd like to set something up to go over there. That is true. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
We need to take
So,
a look
Derek,
at each area, develop a budget for you and kind of figure out what it is, where you should be at. There's what we have what we call the standard budget model. Well, that's great, but it doesn't fit into every single, if your trucks are doing 300 miles a day, that's different, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
It just, yeah, we need to, we'll get Ken to get a hold of you and.
Yeah, I'll give you a call, Derek, so we can set something up because you know, my title is Director of Client Profitability, so kind of what I'm here for. So I'd like to try to help you, and we can at least see where you know, where we might be losing money. So
At 622, that's pretty, it's pretty good.
140 to 150 miles a day. It's solid. There's no doubt about it. I'd like to see what you know, what you're spending on
Yeah.
fuel, what you've got on truck payments, and any other debt service. So I will give you a call, Derek. Okay. So that looks like all the questions. A lot of good questions today. No doubt about it. Some bold predictions out here that Jeff was willing to make, and he's got a very, very good track record. Remember when he told probably about 6 years ago, probably about 8 years ago, we were in a meeting and he told people that they were going to go to 7 days. I mean, they looked like him. He had a third eye in the middle of his head, and lo and behold, he was right. And he may have had a third eye in the middle of his head, but he was right. So, and some of the other things absolutely have come true, and with more, you know, I said I can't give him the Nostradamus on some of these, but they're very, very good predictions, and it should be very, very good for your business because anytime you can increase density, you can increase revenue and increase efficiencies, it will eventually drop to the bottom line and value your business. So
Hey, Ken, I just wanted to say that's really the thing. It's been scary getting up to this point. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it too much. It's gonna get a little chaotic here as things start to really move and change. But in the end, you're gonna be very happy you stuck around. I mean, you think
Yep.
about way back when, single van contractors, all of that, it's a whole different thing for sure. But in the end, as on the other side of this, you're gonna be real happy.
Absolutely. I kind of funny. I had a story with they talked to a CSP in a building in Michigan where I started, and this was the grandson of one of those single van contractors uh, back when I was a coordinator in that building in 1988. So this is something that I'm sure if you asked the grandfather if he would wanted to stick around in 1989, he probably would have told me I'm not sticking around. Well, he did, and he's built quite the legacy for his family and a very profitable business. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Hopefully you got a lot out of this. We will be back here with another presentation next Tuesday. So please have a safe and profitable week. Thank you very much.